anyone would be lucky to have this if you can afford $5.2 million.
Do you still snore?
No, I don't snore.
Yeah, cram me into a tiny house. You better not snore.
You've spent years watching couples tour sun-drenched homes, cry real tears at big reveals, and somehow gut-renovate an entire house in under 3 months, all on a budget that sounds completely believable. It feels real. It looks real. But what if the house they're falling in love with was already purchased before cameras even showed up? What if the ending you watched was one of 2 endings they filmed that same afternoon? And what if the dream home you just watched someone win sent them over $1 million into debt? HGTV has been quietly bending reality for decades, and some of their shows got caught so badly, people ended up in court. Let's get into it. The show where the random backyard makeover wasn't random at all. If there's one HGTV show that should be physically impossible to fake, it's Yard Crashers. The whole premise is built on spontaneity. A host walks into a Home Depot or Lowe's, taps a random shopper on the shoulder, and surprises them with a complete backyard transformation. No auditions, no casting calls, just a stranger in the lumber aisle who happened to show up on the right day. Except there's no such thing as the right day, because the encounter is arranged in advance. A first-hand account surfaced online from someone whose close friend was selected for the show, not because he was randomly spotted, but because his sister had a direct connection to a producer. The surprise in the store aisle was set up. The reaction was prepared. And the whole thing was packaged and aired as if it had happened completely by chance. Now, here's what makes this more than just a behind-the-scenes quirk. After filming wrapped and the crew left, structural problems started showing up in the concrete work the show's contractors had done. The homeowner ended up paying out of his own pocket to fix it, on top of a renovation he hadn't asked for in the first place. And host Chris Lampkin himself confirmed in a Pop Sugar interview that producers approach somewhere between 15 and 20 people before selecting a participant, specifically screening for personality and on-camera energy. So by the time a crew walks up to you in the garden center, they've already turned down a dozen people in that same aisle. The only thing random about it is which aisle they start in. But what Yard Crashers really represents isn't just a staged moment, it's a pattern. The gap between what HGTV promises on screen and what participants actually walk away with runs through almost every show on the network. And in some cases, that gap has a dollar figure attached to it. The Dream Home giveaway that sent its winner into over $1 million of debt. The HGTV Dream Home giveaway has been running since 1997. Every year, a stunning property gets built or sourced, a sweepstakes runs, and one person gets handed the keys on camera in a moment that looks like pure life-changing joy. Tens of millions of entries pour in. The winner cries. Everyone watching at home thinks, what if that were me? Here's what the commercial doesn't mention. For most winners, keeping the home is financially impossible. When you win a property worth roughly $2 million, the federal government considers that taxable income. Factor in the car, the furnishings, and any cash included in the package, and the total tax liability can reach approximately 40% of the entire prize value. That's a bill that comes due fast, in cash, with no flexible payment plan attached to the deed. Out of 8 winners documented through 2004, only 1 managed to hold on to the property long-term. The rest either sold immediately, took a reduced cash alternative, or found themselves in a financial situation they weren't prepared for. The case of Don Cruz, the 2005 winner, is the one that tells the full story. He won the home, turned down the cash option, and actually moved in, determined to make it work. He lived there for close to 2 years. By the time he finally walked away and the property went into foreclosure, he had accumulated over $1,400,000 in personal debt from a prize he received for free. And yet, every year, the reveal looks identical. The confetti drops, the keys get handed over. The winner looks like their whole life just changed. The fine print is never part of the show. This isn't a case of a show staging a house hunt or filming 2 endings. The structure of the giveaway itself The way it's designed and presented is built around an outcome that almost no winner can actually achieve. That's a different category of misleading entirely. Fixer Upper's reputation was spotless until you looked at what homeowners actually kept. Fixer Upper spent years being held up as the honest exception on HGTV. Chip and Joanna Gaines became household names not just because of the renovations, but because the show felt grounded. Real couple, real Texas town, real craftsmanship. While other HGTV shows were getting called out for staged house hunts and phony endings, Fixer Upper seemed to be operating on a different level. And to its credit, the actual renovation work is genuine. The houses are real. The transformations happen. But there are a few things the show leaves out of the conversation. The house hunt at the top of every episode, where Chip and Joanna take buyers through a handful of options, follows the exact same pattern as every other HGTV property show. By the time filming begins, participants have already identified and contracted on the home they want. The search shown on screen is a reconstruction. One participant from the show's third season confirmed to Fox News that the process works the other way around. After being selected, they submit their property to Chip and Joanna's team, who then builds the episode around it. That part, most viewers have either heard or aren't surprised by anymore. But here's the detail that catches people off guard. The interiors shown in the final reveal. The carefully layered furniture, the styled shelving, the perfectly placed decor that makes every space look like it belongs in a magazine. None of that necessarily stays. Joanna Gaines uses staging pieces to complete the look for cameras, and once filming wraps, those items go with the production unless the homeowner chooses to buy them separately. At the end of a renovation that already maxed out the budget, most people aren't in a position to also purchase an entire room's worth of furniture. So the home you see at the reveal and the home the family actually moves into can look noticeably different. Fixer Upper never hid this exactly, but it also never made it part of the story. The reveal is the emotional high point of every episode, and what gets revealed isn't always what gets kept. House Hunters was basically scripted, from the first house showing to the final decision. By now, most people have heard some version of the House Hunters rumor, that the buyers already own the home before filming starts. And yes, that part is true, but the full picture is messier and more deliberate than a simple casting shortcut. In 2012, a participant named Bobby Jensen went public with a detailed account of her family's time on the show. Her story didn't just confirm the pre-selected home angle. It laid out how extensively the entire episode was built around a fiction. Her family had already decided to upgrade their home and rent out their existing one, but producers repositioned their story for the cameras, presenting them as a family urgently in need of more space. The stakes viewers saw weren't real. They were written to make the episode feel like it had something to resolve. Then came the search itself. The two other homes her family toured during the episode weren't on the market. They belonged to friends who agreed to clean up and let a camera crew in. The family walked through, performed their deliberation, and ultimately chose the home they'd already bought weeks earlier. The network later acknowledged the practice in a statement, framing it as a matter of managing production timelines. Real house hunts take months. A show that needs to film a complete 40-minute episode can't follow a family through 50 viewings over 6 months. So the decision gets made first, and the journey gets filmed afterward. House Hunters International operates the same way. Physician and participant Nate Lambert wrote publicly about his family's experience documenting a move to Fiji. He confirmed the home search was constructed after they'd already chosen where they'd live, described how producers amplified a minor disagreement into something that looked like a real point of conflict, and revealed that the realtor seen on camera was placed there by production, not someone the family had worked with at all, partly because of how the real estate industry is structured in Fiji. There's also an account from a homeowner whose property appeared as one of the rejected options on the international version. She alleged that the buyers seen touring her home in the episode weren't the actual prospective buyers at all. Producers had cast a different, younger couple to replace them for better audience appeal. The show essentially runs in reverse. Find the ending. Film the middle. Make it look like a beginning. The budget numbers on renovation shows don't mean what you think they mean. One of the most persistent illusions HGTV sells isn't about house hunts or staged endings, it's about money. Watch enough renovation shows and a number starts to feel normal. $40,000 for a kitchen, $60,000 for a full first floor. These figures get presented like they're replicable, like a motivated homeowner with the right contractor could pull off the same result for roughly the same cost. That assumption is almost never accurate. Steve Ford, who co-hosted Home Again with the Fords, addressed this directly in a conversation with The New Yorker. He acknowledged that the budgets shown on HGTV don't reflect real-world pricing because the shows operate through supplier deals and brand relationships that aren't available to anyone watching at home. The materials, appliances, and finishes that make a renovation look the way it does on screen come in at rates that a regular homeowner calling a regular showroom simply cannot access. He also acknowledged something that takes genuine self-awareness to say out loud, that the show may be creating false expectations in viewers who watch an episode and think they can replicate it at home for that same number. They can't. The number on screen is a TV number, not a contractor number. And the furniture situation compounds it. On most HGTV renovation shows, the styled pieces that make the final reveal look so complete aren't part of what the homeowner paid for. They're staging, brought in to make the space photograph well, then removed once filming ends. The home that aired and the home the owners live in are often two different rooms. Married to Real Estate, with hosts Egypt Sherrod and Mike Jackson, was transparent about this problem in a way most shows aren't. Rather than staging with aspirational furniture and pulling it out afterward, the show deliberately limited its decor choices to items within a realistic budget, specifically to avoid giving homeowners a beautiful on-screen result that doesn't match what they're actually living in. The fact that a show had to design around that problem tells you how standard the problem is everywhere else. Love it or list it, filmed two endings and picked whichever one made better. TV, Love It or List It, has one of the more compelling formats on HGTV. A homeowner is stuck between renovating what they have or selling and moving somewhere new. The show renovates the home, shows them a new property option, and at the end of the episode, they make their call. The tension depends entirely on that decision being real and made in the moment. According to multiple participant accounts, it isn't always either. A first-hand account from someone whose relatives appeared on the show described a filming process where the couple was asked to record both outcomes, one where they chose to stay and one where they chose to sell. The network then selected whichever version made for the better episode. In this family's case, they had stayed in the home. What aired was the version where they listed it. That's not a creative edit. That's broadcasting a decision that directly contradicts what the participants actually chose. The legal record backs this up. In 2016, a couple from North Carolina filed a lawsuit against the show's production company. Their complaints went beyond narrative manipulation. They alleged that renovation funds had been misused, that the contractor brought in by production did work that fell well below acceptable standards, and that the show operated more like a scripted performance than a genuine renovation process. Their filing described participants being assigned roles and reactions for camera, with the show's hosts playing parts rather than running an actual renovation. The couple had taken out a personal loan to fund their portion of the work and felt they had very little to show for it. The case didn't receive national attention, but it sits on the legal record as one of the most direct and documented examples of the gap between what the show presents and what participants actually experienced. Fixer to Fabulous, the show nobody suspected, and the lawsuit that revealed nearly 24 code violations. This is the segment most people don't see coming. Because if you asked HGTV viewers to rank their most trusted shows, Fixer to Fabulous would land near the top of the list almost every time. Dave and Jenny Mars are genuinely likable. The show is set in Bentonville, Arkansas, a real community, with real neighbors and a pace that feels nothing like the slicked-up productions coming out of larger markets. Viewers who grew tired of manufactured drama on other HGTV shows found something different here. The Mars seemed like people who actually cared about the work, which is exactly why what happened in 2023 landed the way it did. Matthew and Sarah McGrath filed a lawsuit against two of Dave Mars's companies, Jupiter Rentals and Mars Construction, alleging breach of contract and warranty over a home purchase that went wrong in documented ways. The McGraths had bought a property for over $500,000, agreed to a list of specific upgrades and repairs before closing, and by their account, not a single item on that list had been completed by the time they took ownership. That alone would be a frustrating construction dispute. But the details that came out in the subsequent court filings made it significantly more serious. An independent inspection of the property, conducted after the lawsuit was filed, identified nearly 24 code violations across the home. Structural concerns were flagged in the roof framing, main floor framing, wall construction, and the deck, which had been screwed to the rim of the house rather than properly bolted. Drainage and grading issues were also cited. The inspectors noted that the problems they found would continue to worsen if not addressed. The parties were ordered into mediation. The McGraths described that mediation as having failed completely. Court filings showed the defendants repeatedly missed discovery deadlines and were unable to produce expert testimony to counter the structural findings. The case was heading toward a full jury trial when a settlement was reached in January 2025, just 3 days before proceedings were scheduled to begin. The terms were sealed. Dave Mars was separately named in a prior lawsuit from 2021, also involving allegations of incomplete work and missing construction permits. That case settled before trial as well. Property Brothers, the most trusted name in HGTV and the one hiding the most in plain sight. Property Brothers has spent over a decade positioning itself as the gold standard of HGTV authenticity. Twin brothers, one a realtor, one a contractor, they find buyers a fixer-upper and transform it together. It's competent, it's warm, and it's been running long enough that most viewers just assume it's the real deal. But start pulling at the individual threads and the whole thing unravels quickly. First, the house hunt. Jonathan Scott confirmed publicly that Property Brothers operates the same way as virtually every other HGTV property show. Homeowners have already identified a house they want before filming begins. The search shown on camera is a reconstruction, not a discovery. Drew, the realtor of the two, isn't actually doing the work of finding his clients a home. He's hosting a tour of options the clients have already filtered through. Then there's Jonathan's role on the renovation side. The scenes where he's alone in a half-finished house, doing demo work or checking framing, project the image of a hands-on contractor who builds things himself. And technically, he could. He's spoken about having the skills to do full renovation work. But in practice, the actual construction is handled by local professionals, flooring companies, kitchen installers, trade crews, while Jonathan serves primarily as the on-camera face of a process he's supervising rather than executing. He's been candid about this. He's said directly that he's not the one laying 5,000 square feet of flooring. His real value to the production isn't construction, it's television. None of this makes Property Brothers fraudulent in the legal sense. The renovations are real. The results are real. But the show has built its reputation on the idea that what you're watching is a working contractor and a working realtor doing their actual jobs. And what you're really watching is two very skilled television hosts who also happen to have the relevant credentials. Now, here's where it gets more interesting than just format manipulation. In 2025, a Celebrity IOU episode featuring Rob Lowe became the center of a genuinely strange controversy. Lowe wanted to surprise his longtime personal assistant with a home renovation, a real generous gesture. But when the episode aired, viewers immediately noticed something off about the home. The drawers were empty, the cabinets were bare. In a house that was supposedly lived in and unsuspecting, there was almost no evidence of actual life anywhere. The reaction online was fast. This woman clearly knew the cameras were coming. And if she knew, the emotional core of the episode, the surprise, the gratitude, the genuine reaction, was performed, not felt. Jonathan Scott defended the show, saying the celebrities involved were genuine in their desire to give back, and that the emotional responses were real. But the empty drawers were already in the screenshots. The debate was already happening. And for a show that markets itself on authenticity harder than almost anything else in the HGTV lineup, it was a particularly uncomfortable question to leave unanswered. Property Brothers has always benefited from being the most credible-seeming show on a network where credibility is hard to come by. But credible-seeming and credible are two different things, and the gap between them is exactly where most of HGTV lives. Now, the real question isn't whether HGTV stages things, it's why, after all of it, we keep watching anyway. Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. For more interesting stories like this, be sure to click on the next video that pops up on your screen. You never know what you'll discover next.